Fintech Chatter Podcast, brought to you by Tier 1 People, the leaders in executive search for Fintech ventures.
Hello and welcome to Fintech Chatter, the show where Fintech leaders join me for a chat. I'm your host, Dexter Cousins, and today's guest is Robert Kassis from Digizoo. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dexter, and it's nice to be up here in Newcastle.
Yeah, thanks for making the trip up. Great to be doing this from my office for a change rather than somebody else's. And also, thank you for coming on the show. As somebody who's been heavily involved in fintech, I think when we look at the neobanking space in particular, there's been two notable successes: 86400 and Up. And we know Ferocia, kind of had a strong link with Up. What a lot of people might not know is the role that Digizoo played in the success of 86400, as well as being behind some other great work that's been happening in the Australian financial services and fintech space. So first of all, I'm kind of really pleased to be doing what I feel is a bit of a great reveal of one of the unsung heroes who you kind of haven't taken the limelight, and purposefully so. And so today I kind of really I'm pleased to be given the opportunity to present to the network Digizoo and some of the great work that you do, but also talk about your plans for the future as well, Robert.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that stems from us having an engineering background and not having a sales background, or not seeking large amounts of capital as a lot of our peers are trying to do. So for us, the success through proof and delivery and evidence base is fundamental to where our business is going today. So it's by design that we haven't put ourselves out there, and we haven't tried to equate ourselves to some of the other high flyers who we're quite proud of and always happy to talk to. We love seeing success stories like Up and the likes of Ferocia and what they've done. In recent times, there's Constantinople that are also doing quite well, and we're sort of happy to be associated with them early on and just give them a little bit of steer in some areas. But that's the sort of role that we play, and we don't seek the limelight. I think our goal is and sort of aligned with what our target market is as well, where we're trying to remain humble and stay close to the ground and solve real world problems rather than sell a vision that is probably beyond capability for a lot of the organizations that we're trying to deal with.
So what is that big problem that you solve?
That's a great question. And it's snuck up on us. I think we went along the hype curve when the neobanks and the digital banks
we all did.
Yeah. and to be honest, it was a great time of learning. We picked up a lot of knowledge from building a bank from scratch at 86400. We helped quite substantially at Volt as well. And the technology isn't always the problem in those places. Sometimes it's the business model, and sometimes it's just the time for those things to have occurred. So for us, we took that, and we started out as a services company, and our history goes back before banking. Many of us and our senior people all worked together actually in energy, in smart cities and smart grid, and we did a lot of innovation work. And what we learned was to do a lot with less, and there was no playbook. There was no, this is how we've done it before. We had to break new ground. We had to deal with problems of scale that we still don't see in the Australian banking market today. The volume of data without the tooling. So we took that, and then when energy became privatised and governments sort of let it go, we thought we wanted to continue this innovation work. And so we all moved across to Westpac, of all places, and we managed to get ourselves onto a digital innovation project there. And that really set the foundations for us to learn the ins and outs of banking, and not just banking, but there was an institutional element to it as well, which was quite interesting for us because it had a whole other layer of complexity that was underserviced for many years, because the large corporate clients just expect the same as well. So trying to bring those innovations and then having a services business led us to a point where after about 6 years or so, we said, well, what next? We had options to continue to scale it and to be a pump and dump type organisation, which, to be honest, from a financial perspective, is the safest and easiest choice to make. But did we make that choice? No, it's not us. It's our DNA was to, with having gained all of this knowledge, helping some large fintechs, the likes of Afterpay, hi Lee Hatton, one of your former guests as well, and to how do we use that knowledge? How do we take this opportunity at this point in time that we don't just make it about the money, but we actually do something that will be remembered for, or that we can change the way the industry works. So we started looking at what it would take to productize our knowledge, which is fairly significant because it's not a shard of knowledge. When you build a bank from scratch, you have to ask every question. It's not just, I need to solve this problem at a point in time for a regulator. So when you get to that point, you understand why you do it, and even if you have to do it. So you ask the more difficult questions. So we took that on as, how do we productize that and give it to people who haven't had the benefit of being in the right place at the right time and having those experiences, and give it to those clients. And that's where we are today. We'll talk a little bit more about our product.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about, because that one of the big challenges is, how do you productize a product, right? A service, a service is a service.
Yeah.
A product is a product. What is, I guess, what was the realization point of, hey, if we want to scale this, we're going to have to productize the business? Yeah,
so, and it hasn't been easy to arrive at where we have today. What we did initially was almost copy-paste what we'd done for other banks, like Greater Bank here in Newcastle, etc., where we built a new platform from scratch. We had to integrate it with core, build new digital experiences on the front of that, integrate with loan origination systems. All of those things were hard, but could we, and did we have the runway and the scale to be able to achieve that? We didn't. And I think we built apps, we built a demo, we built out the platform. Next step became, how do we get that platform, regulatory approved and all of that? And we just, not wanting to take finance from venture capitalists, it's been a huge driver for us. Our values don't align with that in the early days until we get to a certain position.
Right.
And this is a really interesting proposition. I've known a few other founders who've taken money and had their vision compromised because of the need for rapid return on investment. And we were prepared to pay the long game. So we see our services business as funding our foray into product.
Right.
And we're doing that. And I know one of my friends and your other guest, Damir, keeps saying to me, I've never seen a company successfully go from services to product. And, Damir, I'm taking up that challenge. So, I think we can. And it's just about being a little bit more patient and not aiming too high from the start. And that's where we are today. We've sort of developed a product based on what people are coming to us for. Last year we tried to present our product as a digital experience. And what people were looking at was, it's a cool app and we can white label it and all of that. But it's not really moving the needle or solving any substantial problem that needs to be solved today. And what we found was people kept coming back to us and as some sort of a connector between products that they wanted to buy, which were big and complex and global products, and then how they bridge that chasm between the future state that they want to be in and this vision that's being sold to them by often global companies or large Australian companies, and with their old systems that they're sort of stuck with today. And those vendors, low-cost vendors, they've done the job for a lot of years, but they're not able to innovate or connect fast enough to the new world, the fintechs that the banks are all wanting. So, and we had 5 or 6 of them come to us a few years ago now, and they said, oh, we really want to build an API layer in the middle. And so they came at it with a technology solution rather than thinking, how can we solve this? And thinking that just put an API gateway in the middle will solve all your problems. But of course it doesn't. There's a lot of integration work which is very localized and customized. And there's a few old core bankings now that exist, and those companies are starting to be a little bit shaky in terms of financial viability.
We've seen, the kind of banking as a service, hype. I've not heard that term in about 18 months now. It kind of shifted, I think, 2 years back to embedded finance.
Yeah.
Now we've got, kind of banking in a box. That term's being bandied around. We've seen, you mentioned that, services model moving to product. I think 11FS attempted that through Foundry, and that kind of hit challenges as well. We've seen here locally, perhaps Shape do the best stab at that model, but they started out as a neobank as well, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think is kind of, what is actually the thing that needs to be built? Because we keep kind of moving every 18 months, 2 years on, this is the next thing, this is the next thing.
Yeah, and we've been on that journey. Right? We're heavily involved with Westpac's banking as a service before they gave up on that concept. And how has that evolved? And for us, the thing that's always come back to us, and the reason people do come to us, is how do we connect the existing systems? Often people feel like they're shackled to those systems. And they want to get over to the next peak, but how to get there is a challenge. And what we've done is we've productized connectors. So we have a standards-based layer in the middle that everything maps to, basically, and allows us to build connectors to some of these older systems. And we're starting small. We're not saying we can connect everything to everything. And the experience that we got from places like 86400, building against those old core bankings, really puts us in a good position, and we have the knowledge required to, I wouldn't say convert, but to allow connectivity to those systems to enable more fintech integration and integration with newer digital experiences. And that's really what people come to us with. Data action. Yes, we've done that a few times now. And that's the first problem to solve. I think it's very difficult for a CEO or a CIO to say, I'm going to change my core banking. It's an absolute killer. What we're saying is you don't have to, you can just enable other things to connect to it. And that's really what we're about. And we're not trying to be the whole banking platform for everyone, but we're trying to enable things without having to bet the bank on this sort of stuff.
So I caught up a couple of weeks back to record an episode with Stevie Ann DeVico of Beyond Bank. We talk a lot in that episode about the challenges for the community banks and the kind of mid-sized and smaller banks and credit unions here in Australia, and the likelihood of consolidation, but also I think that perhaps the job that Fintech has done over this last 10 years in trying to serve that market, I think they've kind of been off point to a large degree. They kind of don't seem to anticipate or be able to empathize with the fact that they don't have a lot of money. They don't have the resources that a bank does, and there's a lot riding on the decisions that they make. As in, people lose jobs if it doesn't work out.
It literally could be the last throw of the dice for some of these guys. I mean, regulators are pushing hard for more merger and consolidation of that market. And I think it's well known. I think one of the most humbling things is to take a drive out to some of these. I was up in Lismore a couple of months ago, and just to see the flood levels in town, it actually changed their business model and their product mix, and they were able to offer new types of product and loans that is really localized thing. And they've gone back to this serving their community philosophy, which I think is brilliant because that's their competitive advantage over the big four banks in town, right? So I do love those trips to regional Australia, and I think you really get to see it's very different from going to CBA or Westpac and having harbour views from level 32, just how difficult it is and how you have to do more with less.
Yeah.
And I feel, and I think we all feel, that our company is better aligned to the values of those organisations, and we can bring more value to those organisations than we can to a CBA.
Yeah. And I think that, the thing that I really love about that example that you've given is, if I look at the initial excitement that I had around fintech, so I truly believed, not only could it be used as a force for good, but it would enable smaller businesses to get closer to the customer and to deliver products that they actually need. I think one of the frustrations that I'd felt with the industry was, a lot of the innovation we've talked about, it was all back-end stuff that the customer never saw, despite them having millions and millions of dollars every year paid on CX and kind of this and that. And
I think you've actually nailed the point here in that most software companies, particularly the globals, are incentivized to sell their software. So here's our solution. How can we fit your problem? Whereas we've taken the alternative approach. We've sort of seen what problems need to be fixed, and then we've built the software that we feel will solve the problem. It's not a silver bullet. There's no magic, but there's if you can go a long way to getting them there and de-risking that, because the risk with them is a technology risk at the moment. And I would say every mutual bank has a technology risk from their core banking vendor on their risk register at board level. How can we help to mitigate that? And our goal is let's just unlock you and give you the ability to have options. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a place where you can start and then get to the next point and then make the appropriate decision. And they may be heading into merger territory. We're often not aware of those conversations when we're having conversations with them. They're highly confidential, but the point is the position of when we do get to that point, then we've got more, we've got different options that we'll be considering. And I think we're building a product for the industry as it stands today, which is options for the board and the C levels. We're technologists at heart, but we've learned to not speak about it from a technology solves everything type situation. Partnerships is the key for us. We don't have the funding runway to do it. So we have to find a partner who doesn't see us as a competitor. And I think narrowing the focus has allowed that. There's one particular global vendor that we've worked with for many years, but a couple of years ago, they started to see us as a competitor. This year, we've just reconnected with them, and we're talking to them about enabling their product now in other places. And so I think it's really important that you don't overdo the partnerships. It's not a logo to put on your website. There has to be something in it for both of you. And that's how we're viewing it. We're being highly selective. It also then can potentially divert you and distract you, and we're really conscious of keeping our focus on who our customer and market are, rather than our technology partners or business partners.
Yeah, and that's it. You kind of there's always different motivations, right? And it's you're kind of almost putting your destiny in somebody else's hands, oftentimes with partnerships.
Particularly if you're partnering with large global companies, it's really hard to try to wag the dog from that position.
So, Robert, we get some amazing talent listening to this podcast. If anybody's listening, they're interested in Digizoo and want to find out more about careers, where's the best place for them to go?
I think if you're the sort of person that's motivated for a challenge and not just looking for a job, that think about what you want to do first. But, now, we get a lot of people who say, "Oh, I'm a Java programmer." But what motivates you? What gets you out of bed? If you are one of those people who wants to understand the end-to-end, who asks questions about why you're building stuff, then contact me on LinkedIn. Look at our website. There's some updates coming shortly for our new product vision. But that's the easiest place. Obviously, we're still relatively small, so the people we look for are highly adaptable and motivated people.
Awesome. Yeah. And obviously we get bank execs listen to the podcast. They've been guests as well. If they're interested in the Digizoo solution, is it best to reach out to you direct?
Yeah, reach out to me or our head of commercial, Paul Apolloni, so rob at digizoo.com.au, and we'll have a chat. We're being very careful about who we take on in the early days. We can't afford to make too many mistakes, particularly in this sector. It's a very limited market, so we need to nail it.
Fintech Chatter Podcast, brought to you by Tier 1 People, the leaders in executive search for fintech ventures.